Welcome back. I'm Joe Jimenez, Senior Online Editor, itbusiness.ca. And our guest on the program is Jas Anand, Product and Risk Strategy Manager at Actimize. We've had Jas on this program before, but today he's going to be talking about a really interesting topic, and that is card fraud and mass compromise. Actimize had actually conducted a review focused on this topic, and we'll be speaking to Jas about that. Jas, coming to the peer review study, could you tell me something more about this document? Who conducted the study? What were the objectives? Who was polled, etc.?
We had 113 respondents across the globe. I think about 40% from the UK, further around 40% from North America, and the remaining, sparsed across Africa and Asia.
So could you give us an estimate of how many Canadians were polled in the study specifically?
I don't know. I think there was 2 Canadian banks that were polled in the study.
Okay. One of the findings of the study was that financial institutions saw double-digit growth in ATM and debit fraud in 2008 and actually expect the same this year. Why such a spurt in ATM fraud?
Yes, respondents said that they saw, 60% of respondents said they saw an increase in ATM debit fraud losses in 2008 as compared to 2007, but greater than 80% expect that increase to occur from 2009 to 2008. So there is a fear of a greater loss trend, and I think it's attributed to a few incidences, particularly mass compromises, which we'll describe, and skimming, card skimming. The most recent breach was the Heartland payment breach. And recently, I believe in this week, they've actually arrested the perpetrators that were involved, and they believe the same people are actually involved in the TJX breach as well. It's really the theft of data that is encoded on the mag stripe. And the theft of data is stolen in a fashion that allows them to re-encode that information on other mag stripes. So they can take gift cards, buy white plastics, or even use hotel cards to encode the information onto the mag stripe, and then use that card as a counterfeit card, as a duplicate of the perpetrator's card.
Your study indicates that the recession has had an impact on the day-to-day financial transactions of many people. For example, 44% of the respondents reported a decrease in the number of cards carried by their customers, and the same percent a reduced overdraft limit on accounts attached to debit cards. Now, shouldn't these steps have had some impact in actually reducing debit card fraud?
Yes, and I think they're very aggressive steps that are probably not in line with the size of the problem. Reducing overall limits reduces the consumer's access to funds. I think that's a good strategy when limited to the high-risk accounts. And in this, what we've seen banks do is use broad-scale measures of reduced risk. So your credit card limits are going down, overdraft limits are going down, and in essence, they're reducing the overall credit that you can have available to you. And I think it's a very harsh measure that can be reduced a little to allow good customers to take advantage of credit while still minimizing risk on the select few higher risk accounts.
I'm interested in one finding of your study where 55% of the respondents said that they expected U.S. card fraud levels to increase or even dramatically increase after Canada adopts chip technology or PIN technology. Now, why is this so? Is the reasoning that with the introduction of this technology, committing fraud here in Canada will be that much more difficult, so criminals will go after softer targets in the U.S.? Is that the logic?
Yes, I think that's definitely part of it. But there's also the evidence that we've seen across Europe. So when the UK implemented chip and PIN and it slowly was implemented across Europe, fraud migrated to the closest border that had not got chip and PIN implemented. Because they were stealing the data, shipping the data to the location where they could use it and creating the cards there. So I think it's that activity of this migration of perpetrators. So people who are currently producing cards in Canada are going to still steal the data in Canada, but then move to the U.S. to produce the cards. It's easier to ship data across the border than it is physical cards. So with the movement of the card production facilities into the U.S., there will be increased crime associated with those production facilities, and so they'll skim more U.S.-based cards as well, and then U.S. losses will go up. If Canadian cards are used in the U.S., the Canadian banks are still responsible.
Well, the study said that 15% of banks polled issued new cards to 20% of their customers. This kind of seems like a bit of overkill. You're killing an ant with a hammer, as it were. and it also involves a fair amount of expenditure on the part of the bank. Are there more proactive ways that banks can adopt so that they can actually address the issue without scaring off the customer on the one hand and incurring huge costs on the other?
Well, the survey really highlighted one key differentiation, and that was the ability to make real-time fraud decisions on transactions. And by that I mean while the customer is at the ATM, while they're shopping, you can make a decision before the approval comes back to the unit. So in a matter of tens of milliseconds, to be able to score that transaction, evaluate the risk of fraud on that transaction, and run through a series of policy rules that dictate what action will result on that transaction. So, having that ability to stop a transaction in flight was shown as a key differentiator and would actually result in a greater decrease in fraud losses based on the impact or the benefit of real time than the expected increase in 2009. So I think if there's one technology that can reduce the curve of increase from 2008 to 2009, it's going to be the use of real-time detection technology at the point of sale and at the ATM.
So could you give us specific examples of actual real-time detection applications?
Sure. So for example, with counterfeit cards, there's generally two cards at play. So a lot of the models and rules use geovelocity calculations. You cannot be in Toronto and then in Vancouver within 10 minutes if they're both card-present transactions. So when this data is stolen, especially with mass compromises, it's sold in groups of hundreds of thousands to people who will encode those plastics and start to transact. And those locations are often not close to the locations where the customers normally transact. And we can use that type of pattern and behavior to stop transactions that are abnormal, out of character, as well as impossible because of their location.
The study indicates that a very small percentage of bank accounts actually experience fraud. And correct me if I'm wrong in this.
That was incidences of card fraud associated with mass compromises.
Okay.
So that means, out of 100 million cards plus associated with the Heartland compromise, what percentage of cards actually experienced fraud? And it was 4% for the overall, but there's specific losses like Heartland and TJX where they've incurred up to 20 to 30% of the exposed cards have experienced fraud.
I see.
So now with the recent implementation of chip and PIN in Canada, this is going to become even more important. And the reason is the chip and PIN cards are still encoded with a mag stripe. So although they cannot currently steal the chip information, they can still steal the mag stripe. Unfortunately, they may not be able to use that card in Canada. So perpetrators will use those cards in different locations. The closest location is the U.S., and the U.S. is not deploying chip and PIN. So counterfeit cards use will definitely migrate over the border to the U.S., and that's why it becomes even more important for Canadians to use real-time detection to identify legitimate activity in the U.S. versus counterfeit activity in the U.S. and stop it before it gets approved.
Thank you so much for your insights, and it was great having you on the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.